Welcome to the Love of Life podcast. Today we're thrilled to have Shon Tomlin joining us. Shon is an absolute powerhouse in entertainment and media. Shon's an Emmy Award-winning producer who's been building groundbreaking companies since he was 23 years old. He was a kid. He helped ESPN launch the X Games, spearheaded Fuel TV as a senior exec, and even produced the world's first live stream concerts with Warner Brothers and Capitol Records. With a knack for turning underground subcultures like skateboarding and surfing into multi-million-dollar properties, Shon's here to share his incredible journey and insights on culture building in the streaming era, including his recent move to Lore TV. Shon, how you doing?
Really good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. So you've had a really cool career, a very exciting career. How did you get started at the tender age of 23 to do what you've done?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is not a normal path by any stretch of the imagination. I started making skate videos just kind of out of my bedroom. I had a little Super 8 camera and I had some video equipment, and I was already familiar with a video camera because my mom had a little videotaping business, and so I kind of learned how to shoot and edit. But this is like going way back where you're like pause, record, play, pause, record. Like, so this is ancient history. But I was always drawn towards the camera and just experimenting and playing around. And I just started making videos. And at that time, this is like late 80s, early 90s, inline skating, of all things, was starting to take off. And I was down in Southern California, and I knew all these kids that were like skateboarders and surfers that were trying the skates for the first time and like trying to drop in a half pipes and do stunts. And I was like, oh, I'll just start filming that. And I started making videos. And then one of the manufacturers that made all the wheels for the skateboard companies and inline skate companies saw my stuff at a trade show. And they said, hey, we give you like $10,000. Will you make a promo video for us? And at the time, $10,000 was like, $1 million.
Yeah.
And at least to me. And so that was like my first project. And I was technically professional, I guess, at that point. I was like getting paid to do it. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I started getting other projects and doing videos for corporate. And then back in those days, everything was about extreme sports. So like if Mountain Dew or Sunny Delight or Coca-Cola were doing a TV commercial, it was inevitably going to have inline skateboarding, snowboarding, or surfing. And I started developing some like kind of interesting camera techniques and a style that was kind of attracting a lot of directors. And so it was all accidental. And I was going to film school at Long Beach State, but the program was falling apart. They were like on their last gasp of air, and there wasn't much of a department anymore. And I was like, well, I guess I could just keep working on this broken 3/4 machine and this like weird camera from 1968, or I could just go out in the world and just start my company. And so that's what I did. And it just kind of rolled from there.
That's called a happy accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a happy accident. Yeah, it's funny. I'm really careful not to like, talk to young people and go, well, this is how you do it. And, kind of follow this, because it really was, it's hard work, but there's so much convergence of a little bit of luck and being in the right place. And yeah.
What was the trade show that you were at?
So it was, we had a trade show in Southern California called the Action Sports Retailer Show, or ASR for short. And this is where all the surf, skate, snow, BMX, beach life culture, they would all come together either in Long Beach or San Diego. And it was just like 5 days of fun. And, all the, Billabongs, Quicksilver, OP, all those brands would be there, Vision Streetwear. So it was like, it was like the epicenter and where everything was happening.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you also participate in extreme sports? Were you a skater when you got started?
So I tried to be a skateboarder when I was in junior high and high school, and I was just admittedly, never good. Plus, it didn't help. I grew up on a dirt road on a farm, basically. So
That's tough. That's hard.
a lot of pavement. But later in life, when I was 18, I started snowboarding, and snowboarding became my passion, and that was really the thing that clicked with me. So I've had the luxury of being able to snowboard around the world, and that'd probably be my sport.
Where's the best place to snowboard?
So my favorite places are, I love Japan.
Oh,
Yeah, so,
wow.
yeah, Japan is probably my
I
favorite
thought you were
places.
going to say Colorado for some
No, you know
reason.
what? And I just did the Dolomites in Italy this winter, and that's now a close second. It might actually be a
Awesome.
first. So the Dolomites in northern Italy and Japan are my two top.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What make those stand out?
Well, Japan, I love the Japanese culture. There's just such a kindness and a civility in that culture. Um, they just really embrace people, and everything is just really kind and civilized. So I just like culturally, I like Japan.
Yeah.
And then just the beauty, and then just getting into the snow. It's very the snow quality in a place called Niseko is just great. So when they get snow, it's kind of like how people love skiing in Utah because the lightness, the powder, and so you have a little bit of that in Japan. Um, but yeah, I think it's the culture. They're just really nice people.
Cuisine is also a huge thing too in Japan. We love Japanese food.
I do too. And it's funny, everybody thinks of just sushi, but you go to Japan and like their home cooking, all their other dishes are just
Mmm.
they're spectacular. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. What for you has been one of the most, if not the most interesting project that you've worked on?
I love getting questions I've never gotten before. 'Cause it just,
Take your time.
and then you get that like, okay, I got to come up with a really
No,
good
no,
one.
no, you don't. You
You
don't.
can name more than
Well,
one if that's
You can name more than
easier.
one. Absolutely.
Sometimes that's easier.
That's a really good question. I mean, the one that immediately comes to mind is very recent. I did a project for Paris Hilton, this documentary she was doing about the abuse of overseas boarding schools. Very heavy topic, so not all the fun action sports stuff. But I was called in to help with this pretty special project. So I was going to Jamaica, hiring a crew, and doing this very underground sort of investigative reporting about the abuse of these overseas boarding schools, where American kids that are having a tough time in school or family or getting into trouble, they get shipped off to another country, but there's a lot of abuse that goes on in these schools. And so this was sort of uncovering that. And this is a very passionate project for Paris because she went to one of these schools in the United States where she suffered a lot of abuse. And so it was really kind of a goodwill project. I don't know that the project will ever get made, but it was a fascinating story and very different than anything I had done. And surprisingly, I know sometimes when people hear Paris Hilton, they just automatically go through their mind about who she is. One of the most delightful, kind, compassionate, really nice people that I've ever worked with. And I've worked with every celebrity imaginable. And it's not my favorite thing to do, but she was a standout, just a
Wow.
really wonderful person. So that project was super interesting. Um, but wow, yeah, it's such a great. Oh, that's just such a good.
Because you've done
There's,
stuff with the X Games, you've done live stream
yeah,
with the concerts. I
yeah,
I've been watching YouTube videos today again on Fuel TV, seeing the rise of that and what that was like and the apotheosis of that. And I mean,
yeah,
this was like TikTok before, long before TikTok. The stuff you were able to come up with, the just some of those videos and
yeah. Um, I think like collectively, Fuel TV was so interesting, and it's so similar to what we're doing with Lore. When I say that, so with Fuel TV, although it was all funded and managed under the umbrella of Fox Cable Networks, we were not like any other network. And when I came on board, I was the third person to get hired, and we had 4 months to build a television 24/7 television network from scratch, come up with the name, all the marketing, acquire the programming, develop the programming, and go live 24/7 around the world. And I did something totally unconventional. Some would say a bit daring. I didn't hire one seasoned television producer. I hired only young, not just young, but emerging producers and filmmakers, and basically kind of gave them my playbook that I learned, and self-starting and bootstrapping my production company, and basically kind of taught them how to make TV, but still have all the creative freedom. And that was just collectively really interesting because it was just nice to have the money to give people the opportunity and really give them a chance to shine and develop their skills and their talent. And all of them had different, like, we're used to maybe making surf films and skate videos, but making TV is a lot different because there's structure and there's storytelling and there's teases to commercial break and you have to have a story arc and all that. And so that was really interesting and fun to watch young filmmakers learn the craft, to be able to translate their art, still do something that was art and cool. They weren't selling out, but creating it for a format for television. And I still to this day have never seen any network before or since Fuel TV that did that. And it's really cool. And so there's a lot of similarities with Lore TV or Lore.tv that we're doing that I think that same spirit.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, but
see that connection.
yeah, but I wish I still I wish I could come up with the most interesting project. Anyway, I'll figure it out as soon as the podcast
As soon
is
as
over.
it's done, you'll be like, that's the one. And then we'll have to just have you on again at some point down the road.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
Has there ever been a project that you've thought in your mind, oh, this is going to be so great, this is going to be the coolest thing ever, and then it just didn't come to fruition, didn't happen? Are there unrealized dreams sort of in your career? I mean, you've got this great storied career of multiple things that you've done. Is there like the other one thing, hey, if I ever get a chance to do this or work with this person or group, is there anything like that come to mind initially?
Yeah, we were talking about this today, actually. I mean, the one thing I still really want to do, the unrealized dream, is get on the road with just one other camera person and travel around just the United States and interview real people. I just feel like common people that are struggling, living everyday life, they're so like brushed aside. And when they are spotlighted in media, they're caricatures of what, the coastal elites think they are. And it's just so unfair. And I just feel like there's just so many voices in this country with so many things to say and so much love and compassion. And especially being someone who grew up on the coast, when I hear someone refer to people that don't live on the coast as flyover states, or the way that people talk about the rest of the country is really disappointing to me. And I've always dreamt of like just getting on the road with a great camera sound person and just like, let's just pull over into this town and let's just meet the people and talk to them and hear what they're dealing with and what their real life is like. I don't know. That's one thing that just rattles around for me. I would love to do that.
Yeah.
That sounds really
Midwest
interesting.
people are people too. We're just people.
The whole country, and it's just like, we just don't. Yeah.
No, it is interesting that there is this sort of ideal. There's this sort of idea from both ends of the coast that kind of has this notion they just do. And I've met a lot of New Yorkers and Californians and wonderful people in both states, but there is kind of that sense that, with some of them, that, the middle of the country is just whatever, the middle of the country, but this is where it's all happening on either end of the coasts.
Yeah. I mean, even in the state of California, California gets wrapped up into Southern California, the Bay Area. And when you really travel California, people are just so different. And there's people in the state really struggling that aren't living the glamorous life. And there's just a lot of stories to be told. And even as I get older and it's exciting to go overseas and go to Europe, honestly, if someone just said, you can't go anywhere else except just this country, I'd be like, that is actually awesome. Let's do that. We have a great country,
Yeah, we do. Well, and it sounds like you really are interested in people, getting to know people, and probably in your work you've gotten to do that a lot.
Yeah, that's a really big thing, even with Fuel TV. So when we launched Fuel TV, it was like, hey, this is going to be a surf, skate, snow, motocross, wakeboard, BMX channel. And we're appealing to, guys 12 to 24. And, this is what it is. It's testosterone. It's whatever. And it was like, no, I don't think I think it's more than that. And one of the things that was really fun with that is that we didn't necessarily spotlight the usual characters that you would know of, especially in that era. There was all the big names that you would, if I said all the names, you'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that person. But we really went into some of the more interesting people that had more interesting stories to tell, that were really also role models. So really, we had a show called First Hand that would just be 2 weeks in the life of a professional athlete. But we were really careful to curate who we would follow for 2 weeks because there were some, just to be honest, there were some unruly characters that were great, skateboarders or whatever. But it's like, is this really who we want kids to, look up to? So it was really cool to get deeper into people's lives and hear their story and prop up some kids and young people that would be good role models.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think I've always been interested in people. And same when I've covered music, I mean, when you really can sit down with a musician and really get inside and understand what makes them tick and hear their story, you can uncover a whole element of that person that just the mainstream media is usually not interested in or isn't paying attention to.
Sure.
What type of projects have you done with musicians? Like interviewing them or filming?
Well, yeah, I was thinking like my film or music career was kind of divided up into like doing back in the day, it was a big thing to do an EPK, an electronic press kit. So you would do all this kind of video content that would be available to the record label for when they're going to do any kind of video, television, cable appearance. And then you do like DVD behind the scenes content if like a band was coming out with like a 20-year anniversary DVD. And then I was doing music videos. And then I was also doing the very first live webcasts on the web. This is like 1999, 2000, 2001. So it was like when basically 5 people had enough bandwidth to even watch it.
That's right. That's right.
My audience was like 5 people, but the record label was like, let's put $2 million and do this because it was like it was just the Wild West. But so I worked with a range of artists, mostly on the Capitol Records and Warner Brothers. But one of my favorites of all time was spending about 3 days with Radiohead, one hanging out, teaching them how to snowboard. And then instead of doing the conventional interviews, we would interview each band member on the chairlift on the way up.
Fun.
And the vibe you get from a musician, especially on the level of Radiohead, like it's just totally different. They're so disarmed. You're on a chairlift. The sound is incredible because of the snow and everything. Get great acoustics.
Oh, yeah.
Good sound. And those are some of the greatest interviews, and just hanging out with a band like that on that level, because they were kind of mysterious and they never really allowed access, and they were very particular about who got to interview them and what they did. So I try to think of the other really interesting project was spending 2 weeks with Evel Knievel.
Ooh.
That was really super interesting. And
Wow.
getting just to actually hang out with him, where it was like, it wasn't just a quick interview. We were now like spending time with him. So hearing his stories and getting to know this guy that I'd heard about when I was a little kid, Evel Knievel, that was wild. Yeah, I'll have to think about some others. I don't want to sound too name droppy either.
No, that's good.
That's interesting.
Yeah, no, that's good. You have stories to tell.
Yeah, but those are some interesting ones. Those are ones that pop out for me.
Yeah.
You mentioned that was kind of like the Wild West, just with how things were done. How have you seen the industry change? And do you feel like some of those changes have been for good? Are there some drawbacks to some of the changes?
Yeah, I mean, changes are like cholesterol, I think. There's good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. It's like the good change is the access and ability to technology, the fact that you could really film something high quality on an iPhone, the fact that you have all the editing tools at your disposal. And I don't want to make it too negative because I don't know. I'd focus just on the positive, I think. Just the fact that young people or anybody can express themselves. They have the tools, and it isn't such a leap for them, a barrier. And just to give you an example, so I was thinking about, we were one of the first production companies to have a nonlinear editing system. So for any of the video people out there, the video nerds, in the old days, everything was tape to tape, and you put physical tape in one machine and another one in another machine, and you had an editing console, and it was tedious and expensive. And then it went nonlinear. I mean, it was what it is now. It was just digital. It was just zeros and ones. And to make a TV show, you needed 36 gigs of storage to make a TV show. And back then, 1 gig was $1,000. So we had to invest $36,000 to have what now would be like on a thumb drive on your
Wow.
keychain.
Yeah.
and it was like a big deal, and it was this huge tower with all these fans and noises, and I'm like, wow, just think about that. Like, that was a big leap for us to, invest $36,000 just to make this 1.5 hour TV show. And now, 36 gigs, I think would cost you, a couple bucks, I guess.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
So I just think that's a nice development.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That is good. What initially drew you to Lore TV? And can you also give us for those who might be listening or watching, give us just a basic introduction of Lore.tv?
Yeah. So Lore TV basically is a streaming platform, but one of its key differences, I think the two big ones are right now for creators. So if you're a filmmaker, and I'll just use a couple examples. Let's say you want to do something that's like a real patriotic piece about the country, or you have Christian values and you have like characters that are Christian based, or you have something that just doesn't fit in the like super virtue signaling world that's going to get, accolades by the Academy and all that. You really don't have a place anymore to go. So the dirty little secret is that Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Disney, all of those really are a very small group of they work with a very small group of known production companies, and the days of like going with, hey, here's my indie film, and getting a bunch of money for it, or here's my project that's all about patriotism or whatever, they're not even going to be interested. So you have all these filmmakers with all these really great ideas that don't really have a home. So Lure is actually a home for those types of ideas. And not just those ideas, but that's a world that we're really, if I'm a filmmaker with something that maybe holds Christian values or something like that, they don't really have a home for that. There's about 2 or 3 players, and that's really tough to get into those. So that's one. And then the other is, so most streaming, you just pay your monthly subscription fee, and that's basically it. You just like hope that there's a bunch of stuff that you like. Lore is different, where you can, with your subscription fee, every week you get something called loot, which is almost like Chuck E. Cheese tokens that you have every week. And I get an email. I actually subscribe and pay just because I want to do it. And I get an email that says, hey, you got 1,200 loot. And now I can go take my loot and go pick projects, look at like a pilot or a pitch video or a trailer and go, wow, I really like what this kid's doing. I want to give my loot to him. And that loot actually has monetary value. And so like a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding campaign, the person who, once they get their funding target, they've got the money, they can finish their project and go live. So it empowers the viewer more. And it, instead of us just being the big bad streamer going, here, watch this and give us your money, it's like, hey, here's some stuff. What do you like this? Do you like that? And you decide. So that one is really fun. I love getting the tokens and like picking who I'm going to like, and sometimes I give all 1,200 of my loot to like one person. I'm like, oh, I really like these 3 projects. I split it out across 3. And then you watch the little progress bar and you're like, whoa, 2 weeks later, this person got their project funded. And then it comes out and it's like, there's a sense of ownership.
Yeah.
It's cool that you kind of were part of the process and that person got the money. And now we're adding a new feature where even after something gets funded, you can even tip. So you could even buy extra loot and go, wow, I really love what this girl did with this comedy series, and go, I'm going to give her some extra money and maybe, just stoke her out. So that, and if for anybody who's in the film world, you do not get that with Netflix or whatever. So if Netflix says to me like, hey, we like your indie film, they're going to give me one check and it's done. I get no extra money. That thing could just go to the stratosphere in viewership. I don't get 1 extra cent.
So unfortunate for creators.
Yeah. And I hate to say it, but fortunate for us because we're the only ones doing it.
Absolutely.
So it's like, it just makes us even more, unique and special and sought after. So I'm really, as someone who's been a creator and been on the other side of the executive desk and someone who's been on the side of the executive desk to write the checks, it's a joy for both sides.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How did you hear about Lure TV?
So I was listening to a podcast, and it was like a 2-hour interview with Marcus Pittman, who's the CEO. And I was like, wow, this guy, everything he was saying was super smart. I was like, this guy really understands the business. Because a lot of people pretend like they're talking about cable and, tech and digital media and streaming, and they think they know. They just get these guys that went to Harvard, or they work for McKinsey Consulting, or they, their dad was a big exec at MGM, or whatever the story is. But I never feel like anyone really gets it. And Marcus was speaking so clearly, and he had such a vision, and I could just tell, like, this guy really understands what's broken in the streaming and entertainment world. He's figured out a way to fix it, and he's really humble. That was the other thing. He just didn't have that, like, he didn't have that, that tone where it's like, yeah, I went to Stanford and I'm going to tell you how smart I am. It's like, he's just so down to earth. He's so likable. And then I heard about him explaining the business model and what they were doing. So after that 2-hour interview, I was just like, I have to meet this guy. And I was just compelled without thinking. I found the website and I emailed like support@Lore TV, and I'm like, hey, I don't even know why I'm writing or what I'm trying to say, but I just got to meet you guys. And like, he emailed me back like the same day, and we hit it off like a house on fire. And I was like, I want to help you.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened. And it was all from a podcast.
Wow.
That's
awesome.
wonderful. And tell us what you are doing specifically for Lore right now. What's your role?
So very similar role I had at Fox Cable Networks and Fuel TV. So I'm head of programming and development. And then some extra stuff. So like, it's a startup, so everybody kind of rolls up their sleeves and we're doing everything. But my lead role is in identifying programming, helping to develop it, and then helping on all the marketing. So all of the marketing that goes behind getting a program, out there and promoted. And then like a lot of the other stuff too, because I also have a tech background and have done other startups. So a lot of the operational stuff, but yeah, so it's a little. It's kind of like half right brain, half left brain. A lot of creative, but also a lot of like the technical stuff. So,
where do you see Lore going? Like, what's your vision for it? Where do you hope it ends up?
I think what it's going to do, and I'm already seeing the early signs of it. It's first going to continue opening up a door for this really creative talent. Filmmakers, people making TV shows, comedy, sci-fi, animation, and we're already seeing it. We're just out of the woodworks. These people that have got this immense creativity, and it's interesting because they're too good for YouTube. And when I mean that, like, YouTube is a venue and it's a place to be creative, but there's something still kind of there's an elevated level of like being on streaming or cable or on the big screen in a theater. The level of storytelling and the depth that goes into it. And there's a lot of artists that are they're at that level where they can really make incredible films, like the films that moved us that we grew up on, or a cartoon that we loved, or a comedy that we loved. We have the next like Wes Andersons or Paul Thomas Andersons, or name whatever director you loved as a kid. But there's just a whole army of those people. And they've really been boxed out because you just can't go to Netflix and, ring them up and get a meeting and pitch your show anymore. And so we're going to create an avenue for all those people to finally have a place to go. And I think also create a community of people that are like, wow, finally, I'm just so sick of like being preached to and told I'm bad, or told that liking my country is not cool, or that I've got this really great character, but it's about a Christian family, and everyone in Hollywood says, no, we don't want to do anything about a Christian family. It's like now they have a home, and I think I know actually that there are not only a lot of creators but a huge audience out there. I was talking to one of our filmmakers, Daniel Scott Holman, today, and he was telling me, he's like, sometimes I have to sit there in front of Netflix, and I'm like, all of a sudden like 20 minutes or 30 minutes have gone by and I'm still like searching. And I thought, think about that, of all the millions of titles. And I've been there so many times where I'm on the remote and I'm like, I have just 20 minutes have gone by and I'm already getting tired and I haven't even figured out what I want to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Saturation of movies, and then a lot of movies that just suck. They're just not great.
Yeah.
What do you, we talk about this on our podcast. What do you attribute that to? Is that just the Hollywood messaging? Is that the, if you will, the DEI kind of stuff that they have that has so placated Hollywood now for the last few decades? at least, where
Yeah.
it's changed movie making so much.
I think it's tough. You ask 10 people this question, you're going to for sure get 10 different answers. And my answer is going to be it's a convergence of a lot of things. One of them is just the commercial nature of how movie making works. It's one of the reasons why you don't see really indie films or indie comedies like we grew up in the 90s and 2000s. It's mostly franchise films because the franchise films are proven. They know they work. They already have merch and toys built into it, and they know it'll translate in China. A
Mm-hmm.
romantic comedy isn't going to translate in China. There were a million Adam Sandler films in the 90s and 2000s. Like, you don't see as many of those because they're not going to translate in China. And then, so now it's like, if we're not going to make, $1 billion overseas, it almost doesn't even have a shot.
Mm.
And if it does get made, it's so buried, it's not going to get much marketing and promotion. So you really aren't going to really hear about it.
Yeah.
The other factor that is less talked about is the harsh realities of the algorithm. I mean, people, we worship the algorithm, but the algorithm is garbage. I mean, the way the algorithm works is it's not human.
Yeah.
And in the same way I love music, I listen to Spotify, but I'm starting to just hear the same type of stuff and the same stuff over and over. But I'll go listen to like KCRW or like handpicked radio, and I'm still going to discover stuff that would have never got fed on my Spotify algorithm. But I had a live DJ who was at a record store in Amsterdam, and he found this like import single, and he brought it back, and he's playing it, and there's no way I would have heard it otherwise. So I think one of the things with Lore is we're not using algorithms where everything is handpicked and hand curated. So you're going to get just a more human touch about how you're fed, what to watch.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's an interesting point because we've noticed that with music specifically too. Or like, we hate this song. Why does it keep giving us this song? We skip
Yeah.
it and they still play it. With all the
Yeah.
advancements of AI, you would think that it would keep up, but there is an element obviously that's missing in that it's not human.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look, I mean, AI and algorithms, all that, obviously there's value to it. And it is helping the bottom line to some extent. But if you have a little bit more of a beating heart and you're kind of looking for something special and you want to be surprised, um, I don't know that anyone has figured out how to replace that human element of like what's the mood I'm in right now. And just because I watched these 5 titles in the last 2 months doesn't mean I want to watch 5 more just like it. I actually kind of sick of romantic comedies. I kind of want to watch something totally obscure, like whatever. So I think there's a little bit of that, but I just thought it was funny when Daniel Scott Holman told when he said this, it's like, yeah, I can think of so many times I just sat there with the remote and I've just been clicking and I never got anywhere.
I think that's everyone's experience. I mean, anyone we talk to, friends and family, and we ourselves, we do that too. It's just we click, and we'll be looking, and then I think the thing is the human element. We'll take recommendations from friends. Hey, what's good? I'll see even on Facebook or elsewhere, people will literally post things like, "Can you please tell me what is good on Netflix so I can binge watch it or whatever."
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I think a lot of that stuff is inherently in the DNA of Lore TV. So a sense of boldness, of independence, originality, discovery, a lot of the stuff that's just missing. And I'm noticing even young people that you would think, because a lot of stuff I'm saying might be generational, but you talk to younger people too, and they're like, yeah, they're kind of over it too.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
want something more real and authentic. And
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed as well is the Daily Wire. They've come up with movies now themselves, feature films. Is Lore? Can you give us any background? There's a lot of documentaries. There's a lot of great documentaries. There's a lot of cartoons. Is Lore in the midst of perhaps creating that sort of feature film that we might look at someday and be like, wow, that experience was like watching E.T. for the first time? Or is that in the forefront of your guys' minds, or is that just down the road kind of thing?
No, 100%. It's in the forefront. And we've identified some just incredible filmmakers that are great writers, great storytellers. So yeah, it's actually really exciting how much stuff is on the slate that has that kind of breakout potential. The thing for us is when we do it right. You know, we set it up right, we promote it right. Um, and it's going to be a delight for us too to watch the filmmakers actually get to share in the profits of it. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really exciting. So yeah, we 100% have things like that. Yeah.
Can you give us just like a small, maybe overview of what goes into making a movie like that? Like if somebody comes to you with an idea, like we want to film ET, that wouldn't be ET because it would be something new. Um,
Yeah.
to get that project started from initially them pitching an idea to seeing it become a reality.
Yeah, I mean, every filmmaker probably has their own process, and a lot of this also is dependent on the concept. So, if you have a concept that's shot, you know, all over the world, and it's using and it's sci-fi and it's a period piece, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to go get the money to do that and to bring that to fruition just by the logistics and the cost of different sets and costumes and travel.
Sure.
But then there's some projects where that are so simple. And so I'll use an example that I can relate to because it's the 80s. But I remember when the Breakfast Club came out, I was just, my mind was blown how much. Did you see that? Have you seen that movie, The
Yeah.
Breakfast Club? Okay, so I was really blown away because that movie did phenomenal in the box office. It was a cultural iconic hit. We still talk about it to this day. What was so interesting about it, it was like basically a single set with a small ensemble cast, and so you could just shoot it very simply. There wasn't a bunch of location changes or anything like that. Really, no. I think they shot the whole thing at that school. Um, so, and I use that example because as an example of like, if you got that script, you could go, oh wow, this is really achievable. We could actually go make this movie like next week.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Another project, like I said, like maybe something that's sci-fi or action adventure might be a little bit more of a lift. So it really it does depend on the project and the team. And some of the projects that get made faster, a lot of times the director is the camera person and the editor, and they're amazing at all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Awesome. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit of, from your experience, what it takes to create pop culture?
Well, I think pop culture is representative of the culture. Um, and I guess there's two types of pop culture. There's the pop culture that just mimics what's around, and then there's the I think you even used the term, Jesse, at the beginning of the thing. It was cultural. You had a really great term, and we'll have to rewind the tape.
I'll have to figure out what I said that was
Yeah,
so great.
but it was like cultural pioneering, but it was something like that. But it was like there's either you're mimicking the culture or you're off on your own world creating a completely new culture that's authentic and it just came from you. It's not you mimicking something else. And that's the thing I'm seeing with Lore is with the filmmakers. A lot of what they're doing is so bold. And although, yeah, they were inspired by other films and television and things they grew up on or books, it's really their own fingerprint. It's their own voice. And what Lore is doing is really like paving a new way. Like, there's a lot of people that are just kind of sick and tired of like the usual, the expected. And I don't know if that's answering your question, but hopefully that kind of makes sense about this idea of two tracks of culture, mimicking culture and like I'm creating my new own culture,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so much of the music industry, like you look at it, like I go to Coachella almost every year and I'm like, man, like I remember when it was really exciting and there was all this indie music happening and there's all these new bands and people experimenting with different sounds. And now you go and it's just a lot of mimicking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
definitely.
lot of music today, and everything else is a lot of mimicking. There's not a lot of watershed moments that really come out anymore that you're like, wow, that is totally new. That's totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I could just name like, I think of like 6 projects right now to Lore that my mind is blown, like where they're just like one's called the Psalter and he's basically taking the Psalms and then using that as a narrative thread for a modern day tale.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So taking something that's rooted in the Bible, but like reinterpreting it and breathing life into it in a way that like it's super interesting and it's modern And it's not like preachy and like, hey, this is the, it's just like, whoa, this is cool. Because I'm getting it's like putting the vitamin inside the Snickers bar,
Yeah.
I'm eating Snickers bar, but I'm getting this little vitamin that I didn't even think about,
Yeah.
You're getting this like little kind of ancient code of morality but in such a cool, creative way.
Yeah. That's really great. So where can the listeners go to find this great bit of entertainment? It's lore.tv. Is that correct?
So lore is spelled interestingly. It's LOOR.TV. So lore.TV. And you can go on there, and subscription is only $14 a month. And then I think you can also, if you want to just fund some artists that you like, I think now you can do that as well without a subscription and just kind of check it out. But if you have time, like check it out and see what things you like. We have animation, comedy, sci-fi, drama, some reality stuff. So yeah, there's a little bit for everybody.
Excellent. Well, we'll put a link in the show notes as well. And I'm sure when you're done, I'd be remiss if I didn't say you're going to jump in that pool and do that for us, please.
I'm thinking about it. Yeah,
because it looks nice.
That's a great idea. And whenever you're in Palm Springs, jump in
with those clothes on too.
Okay.
Shon, it's a sincere pleasure to have you on the Love of Life podcast.
Thanks so much. Really nice to meet you. Thank you for really good questions too, by the way. I love that.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck with you all.